Screen is visible, right? Good evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Himanshu, PhD scholar from IIT Bombay. So, today we'll go through the week 11 tutorial class from your immunology course. The first question, and we'll discuss more about the like how many types of immunity are there, and then further depending upon the type of hypersensitivity, examples and their explanation and all. So, about the immunity. So, first question for this tutorial is the term xenoimmunity refers to. Option A is immune response to a foreign antigen. Option B is immune response to a self antigen. Option C is immune response to transplanted organs. And option D is immune response to commensal microbiota. Anyone? Screen is visible, right?
Now only it's possible, ma'am.
Screen is visible or not?
Now only we can see the screen, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Any guesses?
Option C.
Okay, so option A is the right answer, but it's okay. So we in first let's discuss about like what kind of immunities are there, how many types are there, right? So there are different kind of immunity like xeno for the foreign antigen, allo means auto means from same body, allo means from like different person but from the same species. So like there are three types basically: auto, allo, and xeno. So this xeno word related to the foreign antigen. Xeno means this prefix means only this foreign from the another species. So if option B is immune response to self antigen, it will not be true because self antigen, if there will be the self antigen, when we can say that autoimmunity will be there because our own cells attack our body cells, right? So our immune cells responding to our self antigens, right? They are treating our cells as an antigen, so we called it as self antigen, and we call this kind of immunity is autoimmunity, not xenoimmunity. Then option C is immune response to transplanted organ. Transplanted organ, when we have to transplant, will transplant from the same species, from the Homo sapiens only, right? So that there will be less chances of the rejection, and will transfer from one human body to another human body. First, we'll see through the like close relation only. If there will be no, then we'll go for the another person but from the same species only. So this kind of immunity we called it as alloimmunity, where the response to antigen from another person of the same species, like in transplanted organs. So this kind of immunity we called it as alloimmunity. So this is autoimmunity, this is alloimmunity. Then it's related. Next option is immune response to commensal microbiota. Commensal means when the microbe which always live in our bodies, and they are in the commensal relationship, that they are giving some benefits to us and they are taking nutrients from our body. So that's like kind of mutualism or commensal relationship. Then it's related to the immune tolerance, because our immune now no more attack to those microbiota, because now they have the some kind of tolerance, we call it as immune tolerance, right? So these, our body will not attack to those kind of commensal microbiota, because now our immune know that this is like, they undergo this immune tolerance, and now they will not act as an antigens to the body, right? So the only option which is true is immune response to foreign antigens. So the term this xenoimmunity refers to the immune response to foreign antigen. So moving to the next question, the principal mechanisms of peripheral tolerance include: option A is suppression by T regulatory cells. Option B is energy. Option C is activation induced cell death. And option D is all of the above.
Option A.
Okay.
Option B, ma'am.
Okay. So let's see the right answer. So you both are true that the peripheral tolerance include the suppression by T regulatory energy also. So these also like apoptosis, activation induced cell death. So in the I think in the week 9 tutorial we discuss about this peripheral tolerance and the central tolerance, right? So what is this peripheral tolerance is? First we'll again recap those facts, that this peripheral tolerance is the mechanism that they prevent the self-reactive T and B lymphocytes, those lymphocytes which will be react to our cells. So that escape this central tolerance in thymus or bone marrow, because we know that first inside the bone marrow this central tolerance will happen. Once they'll pass, they'll go to the peripheral tolerance, and then there also they'll prevent whether these T and B lymphocytes are self-reactive or not. If they are self-reactive, then they can cause this autoimmunity. So the main mechanism for this peripheral tolerance is, first is this suppression by the T regulatory cells. So you're right that the suppression by T regulatory cells also include under this process, where what happen is these T regulatory cells, once when any antigen comes to our body, then the immune cells fight against those antigens. Once they'll eliminate this antigen, that there will be no more antigen, these T regulatory cells, what they will, they'll give the signals to T helper cells and T cytotoxic cells that now you don't need to divide more, because now there is no more antigen, so there will be no more proliferation. If this T regulatory cells will not be there, then these T cells will proliferate more and more and more, and they'll activate and they'll start attacking their own cells, own body cells. So to regulate this process, this autoimmunity process, what happen is this T regulatory cells do the suppression work. And how they do is they release two kinds of cytokine. One is IL-10, interleukin 10, and another one is this TGF beta. So these T regulatory cells release these cytokines IL-10 and TGF beta. So these cytokine now they suppress this activation of these T cells and the proliferation of this mechanism also, the proliferation of these T cells also. So that's how they regulate this, the proliferation and the activation of T cells, and protect our own body so that it will not act as self-reactive. Next is energy process. So next, other than this energy, what is this energy is functional inactivation, that the cells will be there but there will be no function, right? So when a T cells recognize the antigen without any adequate co-stimulation, we know that there will be two signal. If that second signal will not be there, then it become energetic. So such T cells, they will remain alive. They will still be there because now already they are already in the dividing phase. They are already there, and activation also happens. But now these T cells will not respond to the signal 2, that is the on body cells. This will not recognized as an antigen. So these cells also remain alive. They will not go undergo the apoptosis process. They will remain alive, but now they are functionally unresponsive. That they will further not recognize any antigens, right? A- and also our cells, they will not recognize as an self antigen, so they'll still remain there, but functionally now they are inactivate. Now they have don't have any function, they will not play any role. So this kind of property is known as energy. So this is also a part that how the peripheral tolerance happens, that how our body prevent the T and B lymphocytes to attack our cells, that is self-reactive T and B lymphocytes. So they'll maintain that population. So this suppression and then energy, and third one is apoptosis, that is activation induced cell death, AICD process also. What happen is, if there is a continuation stimulation of these T cells by the self antigen, if there will be the continuous stimulation, so what happen is they'll trigger the apoptosis. So these occur, the fast ligand will come and bind with the receptors, and they'll start the pro-apoptotic pathway. All the pro-apoptotic ligand backs and all those proteins they'll activate, and then these all the backs and all those proteins go and attack those cells, and functionally what they do is program cell death will happen, and they'll uh, lies those cells, right? The mechanism we already discussed during the, I think, 9 tutorial. You can go and check. So these are the three processes that this principal mechanism of peripheral tolerance include. There's a suppression by the T regulatory cells, and energy also, which are activating cell, but functionally now they are inactivates. And third one is apoptosis, that the activation induces cell death. Still the activation will be there, but because of the very large population, and it can act as a self antigen, so they'll go, the third process will start. No more chances will be there, they'll just go to this apoptosis process, because still they are acting as an, like they are activated cells, and they are still recognizing our cells as an antigen. So we don't have any other thing, they have to go undergo the apoptosis. So these apoptosis also come under the peripheral tolerance. One is suppression by deregulatory energy, and then activation induced cell death. So here also the central tolerance, we see in that what happen is this pro to pre B cells, and then there will be the receptor editing only. Strong BCR signaling still will be there. And inside this peripheral signaling, peripheral tolerance, what happen is the three kind of properties will be there. First, this is the ignorance, that they'll ignore, but this will not be there. Then energy, that still the activity cells are, but they will not, the second signal will not be there. Because of the not second signal, these T cells will not more functionally active, and they will not recognize ourselves as an antigen. So this property is energy. Then the phenotypic skewing, where the activated T cells with the non-pathogenic cytokine or receptor profiling will be there. These also come under this peripheral tolerance only. And the third one is this apoptosis, that this fast ligand, they will go and bind to this fast receptors. After this binding, these cells will undergo the apoptosis only, and they will not bind to the, and they will not activate any APCs. Once they'll recognize they have these receptors, they'll just go for the death pathway. So moving to the next question, the function of autoimmune regulator, that is AIRE gene is 2. Option A is it inhibits the T cell development. Option B is it helps the T cells to proliferate. Whether it's inhibit the T cell development, and second is it helps the T cell to proliferate more. Option C is it promotes the expression of tissue specific antigen for T cells to recognize the self. And option D is none of the above. Anyone?
Option C, ma'am.
Okay. Autoimmune regulatory. So you can read carefully the question, so you'll be able to answer this. Okay, it's okay. You are right that the option C, that the promotes the expression of, very good, that it promotes the expression of tissue specific antigen for T cell to recognize the cells. So what is this AIR gene is? This AIRE gene, autoimmune regulator, mostly they express in the medullary thymic epithelial cells. We know that first cortex and medulla is there, right? So it will present inside this medullary thymic epithelial cells in the thymus. So what the function of this is, they promote the expression of a wide variety of tissue specific antigens like insulin, salivary proteins, thyroid proteins, different tissue specific antigen. If another from the different types of tissue specific antigen will come, so they'll like, because we know that this is a whole body and they have to promote this so that they can recognize all the self cells, right? So these function is done by this autoimmune regulatory. So this developing T cells then exposed to this self antigen. If these T cells will react to this self antigen, they'll undergo this negative selection, we known as this clonal deletion, that they will undergo this three pathways. First, they have given to the some chance that they'll go undergo this central tolerance and the peripheral tolerance, all those things, so that they can prevent the autoimmunity. If EIR is defective, then this self reactive. If this AIR is defective, if by any chance, if it this will be defective, what happen is, then the T cells which will react to our own cells, they'll just um, sorry. So what happen is, if this AIR is defective, so both of you, like, who joins now, we discuss about the function of this autoimmune regulatory gene. So this is the gene which is expressed in the medulla part of this thymus, and mostly this is promote the expression of this tissue specific antigen. So all that tissue specific antigen, they'll come to that site, and they'll see whether these T cells are reactive to those antigen or not. So the function, it's given by that it promote the expression of tissue specific antigen, so that they can see whether this T cells is recognizing this self cells as an antigen or not. So it is regulating by this autoimmune regulatory. So if this T cells strongly react to this self antigen, they'll undergo this negative selection. And we know this process is clonal deletion. And because of that, we can prevent the autoimmunity. So there will be no more in it, because that have to undergo to the apoptosis process. If it will not undergo, then they can attack our cells and our body can suffer from the autoimmune disorders, like we discussed in the previous class, that SLE and all those autoimmune disorders. If by any chance, if this gene AIRE will not work, then the T cells which are self-reactive, these T cells which are self-reactive, what they do is this, they can escape the deletion process. They'll still remain in our body. Because of that, this disorders can happen, that is autoimmune polyendocrine syndromes. Because not only the one, there are more than more antigens which can be escaped. So this kind, so there will be many more disease will be happens, and they can attack any organs, and it can leads to the multiple organ disfailure. So that if this is defective, then person will can suffer from the autoimmune polyendocrine syndrome type 1, APS1, because now the T cells still they can attack to our cells, right? So this is the AIRE gene. This is present inside this lymphocytes, and if this MTEC express this self and tumor associated antigen, they control their function is they eliminate those autoreactive cells. And also the another function of this AIRE gene is generation of T regulatory cells. And we know that this T regulatory cells is very important to decide whether, because these can under these suppress the process of this proliferation and activation of T cells. If these T regulatory cells will not be there, then the T helper cells and T cytotoxic cells they'll undergo this activation process. Like if the antigen will come and our body have to attack, then there will be more T cells activation, right? And more proliferation of these T cells and T cytotoxic cells. But once this is is not there, it is finished by these T cells. Still, that division will happen, that have to be stopped, and it was stopped by these T regulatory cells. So that's why these T regulatory cells is very important. And the generation of T regulatory cells is also happens through this AIR gene. So the two main function is, one is elimination of autoreactive factors, and second is generation of T regulatory cells. So if this will not happen, this AIR gene is defective, then the person can suffer from the autoimmunity, and they have chances of this enhanced anti-tumor immunity, right? So the right answer is promote the expression of this tissue specific antigen for T cell to recognize the self. So moving to the next question, that is misthemia gravis is caused by the production of auto antibodies against, option A is myelin basic protein, option B is TSH receptor, option C is acetylcholine receptor, and option D is none of the above. Yesterday we discussed about the what is this misthemia gravis.
Option C, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else?
Option C, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else want to answer for this question? So let's see the right answer. You are right, very good. Option C is the right answer, that is acetylcholine receptor. We know that it is a disorder. This is misthemia gravis is a disorder. When there is a presynaptic neuron, we know that there have the presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neurons. So here, this is the cell body and axon, and the last part, this is post cell. Here, this post part, that is dendrite, they have some neurotransmitter, they release this neurotransmitter, and this is the synapse between the two neurons, that is one neuron and this is second neuron, and the gap between the two neuron we called it as synaptic cleft, where there is a synapse, there is a space between these two. How the signal will happen is through the neurotransmitters. So there are various kind of neurotransmitter, acetylcholine, other other neurotransmitter also there. So this neurotransmitter, what they do is they'll release from this presynaptic membrane, and they'll go and bind to this postsynaptic receptors. So here this acetylcholine will release and they'll bind to this acetylcholine receptor. But in case of misthemia gravis, what happen is this body produce some auto antibodies, and what they do is they'll these auto antibodies will against this receptors. And what is this receptor is where this acetylcholine have to go and bind. But now in this receptor, what they do is this antibody have more high affinity and they'll go and bind to this receptor. Now this acetylcholine will not go and bind to this receptor, so these will not bind to this receptors. Only this antibody will go and bind because they have more affinity. It will not go and binds, so they'll block or alter or destroy the receptors. Either they block, either they'll, once they go and bind, they change the shape. Even that they have a high affinity, it will not go and bind to there. Or a third, they can destroy this receptor also. So that's how they prevent this acetylcholine from binding this effectively. Because of that, there will be no neuromuscular transmission. So there will be no signaling between this presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neuron. So they impaired this neuromuscular transmission, and this happen between the neuron and muscle, from those neurons that have to give the signals to our muscles. And because of that, our muscles will feel weakness or the fatigue, and that can worsen the activity. So this is the misthemia gravis is mostly because of the production of this antibody against this acetylcholine receptor, so that acetylcholine will not go and bind to those receptors. So here, this is the normal neuromuscular junction. We can see that this is the presynaptic neuron and this is the postsynaptic neuron. And here we can see that these neurotransmitter come from the presynaptic neuron and go and bind to these muscles, to the receptor where this acetylcholine receptors are there. They'll go and bind to these receptors and they'll give the signals. If the muscles have to stop their activity or they have to relax their activity, all the signal is through this neurons only, and they'll do this proper function and proper neuromuscular junction will be there. But when there is an impaired neuromuscular junction, what happen in this case, this antibody will go, and here we can see that this go and bind to this receptors. Now this neurotransmitter, they will not able to bind to those receptors. They block, they reduce this transmission. So because of that, there is an impaired in the functioning of these muscles, and then they can feel the weakness, or the, if the activity they start this sarcoplasmic reticulum calcium release, and they'll still in the like contracting phase, or maybe they have in the relaxing phase but they have to contract more. So there will be the impaired junction, there will be the impaired signaling in this pathway. So this is the disease neurasthenia. So here what happen is, you guys were right that the production of antibody against this acetylcholine receptors, because of that acetylcholine will not go and bind to those receptors, right? Moving to the next question, in SLE, that is system lupus erythematosus, which one of the following receptor is involved in activating autoreactive B cells? So, which, this is a memory based question. So, which is the receptor is involved in activating autoreactive B cells? Option A is TLR4, that is toll like receptor 4. Option B is TLR9. Option C is NLR. Option D is CLR. Anyone?
Option B, ma'am.
Option B, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else? So let's see. So you guys were right. Very good that you remember that these receptors, TLR9, that toll like receptor 9, they are the receptor which involves in activating autoreactive B cells. Now let's see what is this systemic lupus erythematosus. So it is a one of the very chronic autoimmune disease, that in which our cells attacking the, like the T cells or the immune cells attack our cells. So what happen is, because of that there will be inflammation of connective tissue disease, and then they can affect many organs. Because of that, many organ can, they can damage, and there will be large area of autoimmune antibodies particularly anti-nuclear antibody. Anti-nuclear means that the antibody which goes to the nucleus and they'll just bind. So there will be abnormalities in every aspect, because we know that all the function will start from this nucleus to then they have to go on. These are the main center for the transcription of any genes, right? So because of that, mostly the characterization of this disease is they'll form this relapses, flares, and the remissions. And commonly we can see that these rashes will be there. In case of systemic lupus erythematosus, this kind of rashes will happen all over the bodies, right? And other than that, more and the of if it will be very extreme, then it can cause the death of the particular disease. If that rashes and that like the immune cells, they are attacking all over the bodies and they'll attack more, they can permanently damage to organ, and that will leads to the death of that persons. So these are the some symptoms, that low grade fever will happen, photosensitivity, mouth and nose run, ulcers will happen, muscle will ache, joints arthritis will happen. In psychological, it will feel the fatigue and loss of appetite will be there. Face butterfly rash will happen. In pleura, that is in the lungs also, inflammation will be there, where the fluid will be there. Pericardium, that is cardium, heart related inflammation will happen. Finger and toes also, poor circulation will be there. So there are many symptoms will happen during this systemic lupus erythematosus. And we can see that here we can see, observe that how it will look like, very itchy rashes will happen. So what happen is this, we know that TLR9 is the receptors is involved in activating this autoreactive B cells. These are the receptors which involve and activates this autoreactive B cells, which is reacting to our body. And other receptors which control that, the TLR2, TLR4, and TLR7, these are the main receptors which recognize. So this systemic lip, we already see that it is an autoimmune disease. It will characterize production of autoantibodies that will mostly the anti double stranded DNA or anti nuclear antibodies, which will go to the nucleus and they'll bind to this nucleus. And we know that nucleus are the main centers, they'll transcribe all the genes, right? Here all the factors that involves in our body mostly related to the nucleus only. So this autoreactive B cells in SLE are activated by recognizing this nucleic acid containing immune complexes. We see in the last class also that it recognizes this SLE by activating this. So the key receptors which involves is this TLR9, that is toll receptors 9. So what this toll like receptor 9 do is they recognizes inside the nucleus DNA will be there, and we know that in DNA CpG island will be there. So there will be the methylated and unmethylated, in which the methylated is not attached. There's that unmethylated CpG motif. They recognize this, where the unmethylated CpG motif will be there. These TLR9 go and bind to those. When this autoreactive B cell bind to this self DNA through the BCR, these internalize this DNA and activates this TLR9 in endosomes, and they will provide a strong co-stimulatory signals. Because of that, once they internalize this DNA, like autoreactive B cell bind to this T cells, because now there is unmethylated CpG motifs, and there the TLR9 recognize this unmethylated CpG motif, and there the autoreactive B cell binds this self DNA and they internalize this DNA, activates this TLR9 in endosome. Because of that, again that B cell activation will happen and autoantibody will start. Other options, we know that TLR4, it we know that it recognizes mostly the bacterial endotoxin, so it will not recognize the autoantibody. It will not the main player in SLA B cell activation. It will not the major receptors which help the autoantibodies to produce, and that will attack the cells. So this NLR, that is not like receptors, they'll also detect the bacterial component. It is not a DNA driven autoimmunity. CLR, C type lectin receptor, also we know that it recognizes the carbohydrate on pathogens. So these are the receptors TLR4 and LR, both are for the other antigen, well, like, which is basically a true antigens, not for the our own body attacks. So the main player, that is TLR9, that can cause the autoreactive B cell activation is this toll-like receptors 9. Here this is the main signaling, that how this TLR9 happens and cause this SLE. So this through this IL4 and IL5 also this signaling will happens, and in this way this do. Moving to the next question, that is inhibitory cytokine. The process will be the same, like that how this cytokine will release and they'll again activate this T helper cells. This in SLE, not only this humoral immunity, they'll they'll start like they'll activate other immunity also, like they'll release most kind of cytokines. We know that whatever B cells, so this signaling is same as we see in the B cells, and they'll cause this autoimmune diseases, right? So moving to the next question, that is inhibitory cytokines produced by the natural T regulatory cells, so that our body will not attack to our self-reactive cells. So it will inhibit the self-reactive T cells by what? Option A is interleukin 10, option B is TGF beta, option C is both A and B, and option D is none of the above.
Ma'am, option C.
Okay, anyone else?
Both A and B, ma'am. Option C.
Okay, anyone else want to answer for this question? Okay, then let's see the right answer. Very good. You guys were right that the both A and B, that is interleukin 10 and TGF beta, both are the cytokines which is released by the T regulatory cells, and these cytokines are inhibitory cytokines, that they will inhibit the immune cells activity, so that these T cells will not react to our cells. So these natural regulatory T cells, we know that they are the specialized cells of this, which have the CD4 receptors, and mostly they express this CD25 and FOXF3. The characterization of these T regulatory cells are that they express these kind of receptors. One is this CD25 and this FOXP3, which is the characterization of this T regulatory cells. So we know that their main function is to maintain the peripheral tolerance, right? So that they can suppress this harmful activity of this self-reactive T cells, and they'll achieve this through the cell-cell contact by secreting this inhibitory cytokines also. And one cytokine is this interleukin 10, which is an anti-inflammatory cytokines, and it inhibit the activation of macrophages, which is an APC, dendritic, which is also an APC, and the effector T cells, which is a part of T cells. So they'll inhibit these two APCs, that is macrophages and dendritic cells. We know that these are the main APCs which activate help in the activation of T cells whenever any antigen will come. And another is they'll also inhibit the activation of this effector T cells. So these are the main function of this IL-10, and through the inhibition of these three cells, they'll inhibit the cells to attack to our cells. So these are kind of inhibitory cytokines which is produced by this natural T regulatory cells. Another is transforming growth factor beta. So these transforming growth factor beta or this TGF beta signaling is very important for the T cell proliferation and the differentiation. So what is this TGF beta do when it is released by these T regulatory cells? It suppress the T cell proliferation and differentiation. When there will be a more TGF beta signaling, some TGF beta now will go and bind to this T regulatory cells. Once this TGF beta will bind to this T regulatory cells, now the signal will come to this T regulatory cells that there will be no more antigen, and now it have to stop this T TGF beta pathway. So there will be no more T cell activation, T cell proliferation and T cell differentiation. In this way, these are also inhibitory cytokines which is produced by this T regulatory cells so that they can promote the induction of more T regulatory cells and it limit the inflammation and autoimmunity. So together this IL-10 and TGF beta ensure that immune responses are in controlled situations and also the self tolerance is maintained. So these are the two IL-10 and TGF beta. These are the inhibitory cytokines. We know that T regulatory different functions are there. One is this inhibitory cytokines, and here we can see that this TGF beta and this IL-10, which is inhibiting this effector T cells. Other than effector T cell, it inhibits the macrophages proliferation. Also, this macrophages and other is this dendritic cells. So these are the two inhibitory cytokines, and TGF beta also we can see that it will go and bind to this T regulatory cells, which will activate other T regulatory cells so that they can control the proliferation of the T cells and also the differentiation of the T cells. Another functions of these T regulatory cells, you can see that cytolysis, that they can go to this effector T cells. This process, this granzyme, that is some small particles, they'll go and bind to this effector cells. Once they'll bind this granzyme, they'll create the pores to the cells through the perforin. So these perforin structures, they'll create the pores, and through that pores, the cell lysis will be there, cell death will be there. In this way, they control the T cell. Another is metabolic disruption. Here the interleukin 2 will comes and death by the cytokine deprivation. So there will be no more cytokine release by the T cells. And if there will be no deprivation will be there, so there will be no more activation of the immune cells. Another is dendritic cells as a T regulatory cells. What happen is these T regulatory cells go and bind to this dendritic cells through the LAC3 and through the CTLA4. So once they'll bind to that, we know that CD80 and CD86 and MHC class 2, these are the main signaling help in the activation of dendritic cells, right? But now the dendritic cells are bound by this another CTLA4 and LAG3 by the T regulatory cells. So these are not free receptors. So they will not go and bind to this effector T cells because their receptor are already occupied by the ligand with this T regulatory cell, that is CTLA4 and LAG3. So there will be inhibition of maturation. So now there will be no maturation of these dendritic cells, and there are these dendritic cells are now functionally active because they are already occupied by the T regulatory cells. So other than inhibitory cytokine, that is interleukin 10 and TGF beta, other than interleukin 35, these are the inhibitory cytokine that help in the control of our immune cells. Other T regulatory function is this cytolysis and this metabolic disruption and dendritic cells as a T target. So these are the main four function of this T regulatory cells. And one such is inhibitory cytokine. And in the question they asked that which were the cytokines, and we saw that this interleukin 10 and TGF beta are the two cytokines that produced by these natural T regulatory cells so that they can inhibit these self-reactive T cells. So you guys were right. So these are the same thing that I already discussed. In other than that, like in different cells, but other function of this IL-10 and this TGF beta. So how they suppress. So this these are the different function of this IL-10 and TGF beta, right? That if alone will be there and if there will be the combination of this IL-10 and TGF beta. If the combination of these factors, cell suppression will be there. So moving to the next question, a syngeneic graft is tolerated as it involves the transplantation between option A is genetically identical individual, genetically distinct individual. Option B is genetically identical individuals. Option C is same individual. And option D is genetically distinct individual for MHC. Anyone?
Option B, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else? So you are right, option B, that is genetically identical individual. So what is this syngenic graft is? That is transplantation between the genetically identical individual, like twins which have this genetically identical. So the main example of this syngenic graft is between the identical twin. So these are the genetical identical or between the inbred lab animals which have the same strains, because they have a donor and recipient both share the same MHC molecules, so the graft rejection chances will be nil, and the graft is recognized as cells, so there will be no immune rejection happens, and successful transplantation will happen as the syngenic graft is tolerated. Tolerated means there will be no immune rejections because these are the genetically identical individuals. And these kind of genetically identical individuals we called it as syngenic graft. If distinct individual will be there, then we call it as allogenic graft and it can prone to the rejection. And if the transplantation happens within the same individual, we called it as autograft, not syngenic, autograft. Best example is whenever there will be skin burn cases, what they happen is in the part of the body where the skin is more, they take out the skin from that and they'll place to the burnout part. So the skin graft from one part of body to the another, mostly it will come under this autograft, that the same individual is grafting the from another part of the body, but in the from the same individual it is grafting to the another part. So there also the graft rejections will be nil because it's in within the same individual. And next is genetically distinct individual. For this will described as an allograft, not syngenic. This come under the allograft because they are different individuals, but not syngenic because they are not twins, but they are different individuals because they have this distinct individual for MHC because they don't have this MHC same. So, so these are the four types of graft, that is autograft, syngraft, allograft, or this xenograft, right? So the syngenic, that is genetically identical individuals. So autograph from one part of the body to another, like if the trunk to the arm, we have to place the skin transplantation under the autograft. Isograft, that is syngenic, that is between the identical, that a monozygotic twin or within the inbred strain, that is isograft. Allo, that is between different member but from the same species, that the, from the Homo sapiens only, and is grafting to the same, right? So the person X to the person Y. Xenograft is totally different, that is foreign. Here the graft rejection chances will be more. So the between members of the different species like pig to human. So this autologous, no graft chances will be there as from the same individuals. And isograft from the syngenic, that is from the twins, no rejection because these are the genetically identical. So the graft rejection chances will be allogenic when the person have a distinct MHC but same individual, they're the same species, that is allogenic. And xeno from the different species, so xenograft. So here the graft rejection chances will be there. Moving to the next question, the minor histocompatibility protein are responsible for graft rejection due to their option A is antigenicity, option B is secondary structure, option C is polymorphicity, and option D is helical propensity. Anyone?
Answer A, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else?
Option B, ma'am.
Okay. D. Okay, let's see the right answer. It's okay, at least you guys were right, but option C is the right answer. So, polymorphicity. So, what happened is this minor, not major, this is a minor histocompatibility protein. They are responsible for the graft rejection because of this property of this polymorphicity. What happened is, so these APCs will be there, and this is the donor CD8 cells because the gene sequence is almost same. So, but there will be some SNPs, the single nucleotide polymorphism. Only that only one nucleotide will be different. But sometime what happen is because of the single nucleotide different, they can also produce some different kind of protein, and because of this different morphological appearance and different genetic will be there, right? If it will code the different proteins, if this SNP code the different proteins, then it will cause the polymorphicity, right? If the some codon that is different, but it will still code for the same protein, that is also okay. But in case of single nucleotide polymorphism, this can produce the different proteins, and that can also leads to this like graft rejection. So we know that histocompatibility proteins are what, as the name suggests, histocompatibility. That is when we have to transplant any tissue, whether these are compatible to the proteins. So basically, there will be protein compatibility, right? If these proteins are the same as another individual, they will not act as an antigen to the when we add to the another person, right? So these are the proteins whether they are compatible to the body or not, to the histo, that is to the host. Histo means host compatibility. When we have to transfer whether these are compatible to the host or not. So these are proteins, we called it as histocompatibility proteins. So these are the molecules, they determine whether the transplanted tissue will be accepted or not. If these are compatible to the histo, that is host, they will be the transplanted tissue will be accepted. If these are not compatible to the host, then there will be the chances of this rejection. So these major histocompatibility proteins, we know that they are the main determinants. That is HLA. Main is HLA. In case of humans, this is we know that we termed it as HLA. Instead of MHC, we termed it as HLA in humans, and they are the main determinant whether the graft is whether the graft is compatible to the host or not. However, when we know that even this donor and the recipient MHC are identical, like in siblings or twins, this syngenic graft rejection sometimes happen, right? Even they are twins, that these are the same twins, we know that they are same genetic composition, but less than 0.001% because of this SNP, sometime graft rejections happens. Why? But they have the same MHCs, right? Because of this minor histocompatibility proteins, that normal cellular proteins are little bit different because of the polymorphicity, because of the single nucleotide polymorphism, because of this polymorphism, that is genetic variability between the individuals, then there will be the chances of this graft rejection. So that's why, because of this minor histocompatibility proteins between the twins or between the same genetic composition individuals, because of this polymorphicity, that is there is only some sequences different and we call it as SNPs, the graft rejections happens. So the responsibility of this graft rejection because of this minor histocompatibility protein is because of this polymorphicity, that they have the different genetic, like some different genetic composition will be there. So when these donor proteins and these nucleotide, one nucleotide difference, they'll produce the different proteins. Like we know that first, if this is AUG, this is start codon, they produce this methionine, but instead of their AUG, this like C will come, then it will completely produce some different proteins. I don't know exactly. Let's say it will produce now glycine. So now the donor protein is different from the recipient, but they can present it on MHC molecules. Still, they recognize as an foreign antigens, and that will lead to this graft rejection. Other option is antigenicity. No, true, they can act as an antigen, but the root causes and polymorphism. But the main difference through this minor histocompatibility is they have polymorphism. Secondary structures is not relevant because it's a kind of the protein structures. That the protein secondary structures will be different. No, no. The main causes secondary structures can be different, but still they are producing the same proteins. So it's not relevant to the rejection that because of the different secondary structure. Helical propensity, it's a property to fold the proteins. It also irrelevant because protein folding, if still be the different, still they produce the same proteins, right? That is also not produce any graft rejection. So the main option is this polymorphism, that genetically they have different nucleotide, single nucleotide polymorphism. Because of that, even within the twins there is a rejection of, even in the syngenic graft there is this rejection of this graft rejection because of this minor histocompatibility proteins, that they have this genetically variability between the individuals, so the host will not be compatible to those proteins, right? And the transplanted tissue will be the rejected, right? So here we can see that this is a donor and donor APCs. Because of this, these actually is there. We know that these are the main proteins which determine, and there are different type of HLA, HLA-A, HLA-B, and all. So these HLA it's not recognizing as this donor cells, and they will act as an donor and this donor cells and donor APCs. But when there is a recipient APCs, these minor H antigens they will still be there and they will not recognize here. And there is the activation of GVHD or GVL. Like there is a graft versus host rejection, they will activate this graft versus host rejection because this donor T cells they have some different genetically, and they'll activate this pathway, and because of that different protein will be there and there will be a rejection chances. Moving to the next question, that indirect allo recognition is mediated by presentation of donor molecule to the T cells by indirect allo. So there are two types, direct and indirect. So you have to tell that is mediated by the presentation of donor cell to the T cells by option A is donor MHC molecule, option B is self MHC molecule, option C is both donor and self MHC molecule, and option D is none of the above. Anyone?
Ma'am, option C.
Option C, ma'am.
Okay.
Option C, ma'am.
Okay, so three of you are saying option C, but the right answer for this is self-MHC. So how, why this donor is not? We'll see. In case of direct, it's okay if you are trying. So one of you have mic is on. So can you please turn off your mic? So there are two main pathway of this allo recognition. One is this direct and another one is indirect. So what are the main difference between direct and, so in case of direct, this recipient T cell recognize this intact donor MHC molecules. So if this is a direct allo recognition, there we can see that the even they have this intact donor MHC molecule, and this recipient cells will recognize this intact donor MHC molecules on the donor APCs, and there will be the strong response, and that will cause this acute graft rejection, not the like strong response, and they'll just reject those. But in case of indirect allo recognition, what happen is these donor proteins, including this MHC molecules, are taken by the recipient APCs. These proteins are processed and presented as a self MHC molecules to the recipient cells. So these pathway they resemble as a normal immune response to the foreign, and they'll role as a chronic graft rejection. Here what happen in case of indirect allo recognition, instead of attacking those reject that part which are going to be transplanted. Now they are attacking to our own cells also, right? So there will be a chronic part that in they are attacking to our else. So here that is mediated by the presentation of donor to the self MHC molecules. So if there is, because to increase the chances of the graft adaptations, they are giving this indirect allorecognition. But in case if it fails, it can lead to the chronic graft rejections, because they are producing those molecules that body can body can recognize and body can accept, because they are thinking that these are the self MHC molecules. But what happen if the immune system activates? They'll just attack to our cells also, and in that case chronic graft rejection will happen. So here this donor direct pathway of allorecognition, and this is the indirect, where they are presenting this allopeptides that the recipient T cells indirectly activates, and they are not activates like that because of this self molecules, the self pathway they are. Another pathway is this semi-direct pathway, where this recipient dendritic cells acquire this donor bound with this allopeptides. So they have this allopeptides also. So these are the different pathway during the transplant. One is this direct, where the transplant where the transplant directly bind with this MHC because they have this intact MHC. Here, the instead of intact MHC, there is allo antigen also, so that this TCR, because we are adding this allo antigen also in case of indirect allo recognition, so that the body will not recognize as the different tissue, right, and they can accept. But in case of rejection, here the chronic symptoms will happen. There the chances of acceptance is more, because we are adding this allo antigen that is same as our body, and they will recognize it as self reactive molecules. So there will be no graft rejection chances. But if it happens, then it will lead to the chronic graft rejection. Here the in case of direct, here we are not adding this allo antigen. Direct, this intact MHC will be there. TCR MHC signaling will happen. If they have to accept, it will accepted. If it's different, then it will leads to the graft rejection. And semi-direct also, here we are transplanting the MHC. Instead of that, we are adding this donor APCs also. So these donor APCs will be there, and it will go and help in the graft adaptations, right? So these are the three different types of allo recognitions. Moving to the last question of this class, the fetus is an allograft, right? The fetus is an allograft, the fetus which is present inside the, that is not rejected. Why? Because of the presence, option A is absence of this MHC2 on trophoblast layer of placenta. Option B is nutrient depletion of T cells by the action of IDO enzyme. Option C is upregulation of induced T regulatory cells. And option D is all of the above. Anyone? Anyone want to answer for this question?
Option A, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else?
B, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else? Let's see the right answer for this question. So you guys were right that option A and B both are true, but more than one option is true. How? We'll see. The fetus, we know that fetus is not exactly same as the mother. We know that fetus, why still, if in inside the mother's body, we know that there will be the fetus, and we know that the genetic composition will be different. Then how body is not acting this fetus and attacking on this fetus and reject those? Why? the fetus is genetically different, we know that, and it come under the allograft from the mothers, that it carries some paternal antigen also. Yet it is not rejected because allograft. Why this allograft? Because same species, that is homo sapiens, but from the different individuals, and we know that they have the genetic composition from the paternal also, from the father also. Then why these immune system will not activate and attacking on this fetus? Because it is genetically different, it is a part of this allograft, because they have this paternal antigen also. So there are different mechanisms that help in not rejecting this fetus. So these are the three main pathway. First is absence of this MHC class 2 on trophoblast layer of placenta. We know that the outer layer of this placenta is this trophoblast layer, which provide the nutrients to the placenta. We know that. So this trophoblast outer layer of placenta, they interfere directly with the maternal tissue. And the interesting thing is, this trophoblast, they don't express any MHC class 2. If there will be no MHC class 2 molecules, then it will prevent the maternal CD4 cells to activate. We know that these MHC class 2 only, they will interact with the CD4 receptors, right? But in case of trophoblasts, they don't express any MHC class 2 molecules, so they will prevent these CD4 cells from recognizing the fetal antigen and initiate any immune response. So that's why, because of the absence of MHC2 on the trophoblast layer of placenta, it will not go and bind and it will not initiate any immune response. Next is nutrient depletion of the T cells by the action of this IDO enzyme. These IDO enzyme is very important, and this IDO enzyme is indolimine 2,3 deoxygenase enzyme. It is expressed by the placental cells. So this placental cells have this IDO enzyme. They express this enzyme. What they do is they depletes there the tryptophan. There the tryptophan will not happen. And one of the key factor for the T cell proliferation is this. Tryptophan is very, very essential amino acids for the T cell proliferation. If there will be no tryptophan, then there will be no amino acid. Then there will be no amino acid. Then there will be no T cell proliferation, because this tryptophan will be the very essential amino acid which is required for the T cell proliferation. So this result in the suppression of maternal T cell activation. So there will be no T cell activation of this maternal outside this area, outside the placental. So that's why the second thing is which help that this allograft will not reject it, that there will be a nutrient depletion of T cells by the activation of this IDO enzyme, and which is a very important enzyme for tryptophan, and there will be depletes this tryptophan, uh, which is an essential amino acid. Next is upregulation of induced T regulatory cells. So pregnancy is mostly associated with increasing T regulatory cells. If we'll count this number of T regulatory cells in a normal individual and in a pregnant females, we will find that there will be increase in T regulatory cells. And these T regulatory cells, because of the upregulation, they suppress the maternal immune response. So they suppress that and they can reduce the chances of this allograft. So this is the case that here we can see that in case of insemination, this sperm will come and they'll go, and once they bind with the egg, we know that there are different types of cells are there, and these will activate dendritic nucleic. But here we see that more T regulatory cells in case of after the embryo transplantation will happen. This will go and they will not activate these T cells. Another is they have this layer that this immune system will not, we can see that there is no MHC2 molecules, so that these will not come undergo and activates. And also the third is they have this IDO enzyme. These IDO enzymes also, they will not form this tryptophan, which is essential for the T cell proliferation. So here the T cells will be less, so we can see that no activated T cells, and here also without this. And other than that, uh, for your extra information, that how they balance is this EVD. The EVD is extravascular trophoblast. So this trophoblast layer. So this is the trophoblast layer. So we know that we have a different type of HLA-A, histocompatibility A, B, and other also. But the mostly EVT did not express this HLA-A and HLA-B, and these are the most which is helping in whether graft rejection or chances will be there. So these are the polymorphic. So but they don't express these trophoblast cells, don't express this HLA-A and HLA-B, and which is important for the graft rejection. So if there will be no HLA and no HLA-B, these are the polymorphic one. Even if they have a different genetic composition, they don't have this HLA-A and HLA-B, so they will not go and bind to this T cells and they will not activate those cells. Instead of that, they have this HLA-C and non-polymorphic, that is HLA-A and E, G and F. So instead of that, they will express this HLA-G, and here we can see that HLA-E and then HLA-F. Because of that, they will tolerate and its cytotoxicity will low and rejective chances will be low, because this HLA EGF maternal CD recognize, NK cells can directly recognize this HLC. CD4 positive can indirectly recognize it, and E and G protect this EVT from this NK cell cytotoxicity. So these G and E, we can see that these natural killer cells, they directly go and bind with this HLA G and E, because here the T cell activation will reduce by the HLA-A and B, and we know that they don't have this HLA-A and B. So that kind of rejections will eliminated. Instead of that, they have this GEF also, and this GE, what happened, they, even the natural killer cells can act and reject this, but that chances also reduced by this CEF, because this will go and bind to directly with this natural killer cells and the cytotoxic T cells. So because of that also, that another types of immune activation that can happen through this natural killer and CD8 cells, that will also reduce cytotoxicity. So in this way, this trophoblast layer is very important. And also these T regulatory cells can recognize this APC and induce this tolerance. So that's how this uh, these will even, this is a part of allograft, they will not reject this because of the presence of this trophoblast layer and the placenta, because the trophoblast have this HLA-A, B don't, they don't have, so they will not react with this MHC. MHC in humans we known as this HLA. Here the HLA-B are not there. Instead of that, CEF is there, which will contact with the natural killer cells and the cytotoxic cells and inhibit those. So in this way, they reduce this immune cytotoxicity, right? And other than that, we saw that nutrient depletion by this enzyme, which is also released by the placenta, and also there is a upregulation of this induced T regulatory cells. So that's how the fetus, even as a part of allograft, that will not be rejected, right? So any doubt? Any doubt? Okay, then uh, we'll